Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Like we say here, it all depends on the time zone from where you're watching us from. Welcome to The Leader. And this time on the show, we have a very special guest who I call my friend, my brother, that is none other than Bwana Reuben Kigame. Karibu sana.
Asante. It's really
And
nice.
Bwana Kigame,
Yes, sir.
apart from me who knows you, if others are watching and wondering, who is this man who is called a friend and a brother?
Yes.
How would you introduce yourself?
No, I wear many hats, but bottom line, I'm a born again, child of God and committed to issues of truth and justice and knowledge. And so I come to you as a teacher, trained, bona fide high school and college teacher. And I'm also a worship minister, in the area of music, with a lot of repertoire since 1987, recording artist as well. I love to lead worship, and also I come to you as an activist. I've been quite involved in matters of justice and equality and rights and so on. Worked very closely with Linda Katiba Initiative. And I also wear a disability cap because I've lived with visual disability from when I was 3. So I articulate issues of inclusion and empowerment for such people. And then in the recent concluded elections in Kenya, I vied. I was a presidential aspirant, actually. So I come to you with
Very many hats.
quite a bag. I'm also a broadcast journalist.
Yes.
But that's on the side now. So bottom line, just remember that I'm a child of God committed to the gospel and to the transformation of the world. That's it.
Fantastic. Wow. Quite a CV that you bring on board, and very qualified to actually speak to the subject matter today, because it's all about healing and reconciliation. Why do we need healing and reconciliation? And from where you sit, will we ever have a time, will there come a time when you can say, now we have healed, we have reconciled, now that is behind us, from where you sit?
So I like the words of Jesus. He said, those who are well don't need a doctor.
Yes.
So it means that the sick are the ones that need a doctor. And society is sick at different levels. The family is sick. Our nation of Kenya is sick. Africa is sick. The world is very sick. And I would say healing comes at different levels. You could come at it, from the mental illness that we all carry around because of the socioeconomic issues. You could come, from the issue of values, where, like for Kenya, we tend to be fixing the economic problems when our fundamental problem is values. We try and fix leadership and political problems using money and the recycling of people that have been there thinking they are experts, so they'll, so you have a sick society. And as a Christian activist, I would say we are looking for answers and solutions in the wrong way, in the wrong places, because we always run to people, we run to, mental health experts, we run to political leaders, when actually the solution is right in God's word. And, someone might think I'm gainsaying this. I'll tell you the truth. The Bible is a book, a set of books that has not just therapy, but also formulae for how to engage, especially with social illness. And that I have found for me as a person, for my family, for, the political space that I've been involved with. I cannot, look anywhere anymore. I think God has sufficient stored up for us in the Bible that can bring us the healing.
There's two contexts. In fact, I'm so glad that you mentioned the Bible. Context from which I would want us to look at briefly in terms of when did the rain start beating man, contextually in terms of the Bible, and then we as a nation, we as a people here in Kenya, when did the rain start beating us as a people? And here, let's take the lane of politics. When did the rain start beating us?
Yeah, very well separated there. So with regard to the church, I think the rain began to beat us with the evangelization of the continent. Because the way we evangelize Africa, and we have continued in the same way of doing things, is that we focus on conversion. You know, wangapi wamesikia injili, you know, how many have raise your hand, you'd like to come to Christ. So we approach conversion or rather the spread of Christianity in Africa numerically. So 5,000 gave their lives to Christ and so on. Instead of approaching it from discipleship, where, you know, you are making someone a follower of Christ. They understand the teaching of Christ and they live like Christ. Instead, what we have is demographics. In fact, when you look at all the research studies and so on, there's a lot of demographic stuff, including even how Christianity is spreading in the global south. So you're looking at people saying Africa is south of the Sahara is going to be this and it's going to be that, and Latin America and Asia and all of that. But really, discipleship is the thing that is suffering. So the rain began to beat us there. And I think the more we tend towards discipleship, the more results we will get. And the better the nations of Africa will be, and the better Kenya will be, the better the family will be. Now, politically, we lost it at independence because we only got partial independence. What Kenyatta, the first Kenyatta, did was negotiate with the colonizers so that the colonialists did not really go away. So we inherited what I would call a neo-colonial complex, where our own brothers and sisters began to act like the colonial masters that colonized us. And so we have had a succession of leaderships in this country that are neo-colonial. And so everyone is scrambling to be the boss, wanting to be the man with the power. You know, I've got it and I can distribute it the way I want. So you negotiate the way the colonialists used to negotiate, divide and rule. So you say, I need the Kikuyu vote, so I'll go to the mountain. And I need the Luya vote. I need so and so in the basket. So at the end of the day, when you finally have a chance to lead, then you distribute leadership positions according to tribal inclines. So like in the current distribution, the Ruto administration, Rigathi Gachagua comes to the table and says, we gave you this many votes, we need these many cabinet positions. Mudavadi comes and says, we delivered something, you know. Meanwhile, what's happening to Kambani and Taita Taveta and, Narok and Coast and northeastern Kenya and Turkana? So they're all left behind because they're not part of what Mutahi Ngunyi used to call the tyranny of numbers. Mm-hmm. So the rain beats us because we use the same mechanism. Instead of uniting the country, we continue with the divide and rule. And as long as we continue that way, Edmund, we're going nowhere. In fact, we'll go backwards because what's happening is it's a swing. So you think you're actually moving forwards, but you're actually moving backwards.
You're retrogressing.
So if you look at, for example, the way William Ruto is doing his style of leadership, he's doing it the way Moi did it. You know, the late Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. So get everybody on your side and form this powerful entity, and then mash everybody else. No negotiations. It's quite different from the handshake stuff. So the rain has beat us more and more because we recycle the same leaders, but expect different results. We are very shy to adopt new leaders or new ways of thinking about Kenya. And we are very neo-colonial in the way we do leadership. So as a result of that, you end up dividing the country further, splitting people into camps. In fact, like right now, the worst has happened to Kenya, and that is even the church is getting split, because there are those who believe God spoke this way, and so those who are on this side of the equation are close to God. If you are, for example, in Azimio, or you are, you wanted to vote for Kigame, even if he didn't make it to the ballot, then you are deemed to not have heard from God. Now, then there is another thing that has happened. We now have the evangelical versus other, denominations. Now, the sooner we engage with the reconciliation, the better, because if we let it to keep percolating, what's going to happen is that we will divide the nation, but we will also divide the church further. I've been counseling with a lot of different people on phone and on social media that are saying, if my camp did not win, what's the point of going to church? So we're losing disciples. We're losing believers to apathy. There are people who, up to this time, are in pain, a lot of pain. My candidate lost. But how are they responded to, especially in the social media spaces? Get used to, get along with it, get used, forget it. It's a win and lose game. So, learn to live with it. Now, as long as we don't deal with the bubbles below, we are going to be in a very, very bad place. And I think the church has a unique opportunity, very unique, to bring that ministry of reconciliation. I was reading 2 Corinthians chapter 5 from verse 17. And it says, if anyone is in Christ, he's a new creation. The old has passed away, everything is new. But it says that, that God in Christ was reconciling the world to him. And then he has given us the ministry of reconciliation. So we become agents of reconciliation. It's as if God is appealing to the world to reconcile to him through Christ, through the cross of Christ. And so we have become, so to speak, as Paul would put it, ambassadors for Christ. It's as if God is appealing to the world through us. And we have a unique opportunity, especially those of us who understand what that reconciliation is all about. We were strangers before, and God brought us near. Now it's our turn to bring our brothers and sisters near instead of draw them far. So if you see a church that is tearing apart and engaged in division and fights and so on, and the don't care attitude, then reconciliation is not taking place.
Wow. Just from that, a couple of things come to mind. One, somewhere within what you said, I had handshake. Okay? And then there is also the aspect of values. It's like resetting back to where we should begin. We as a country, do we have values, and what are these values that you are suggesting that we might be missing out so that we don't end up prescribing the wrong solutions to symptoms that we are not reading what they mean, and then have the challenges manifesting itself in simmering for a long time, because for the longest, even Kenya as a country, we kept on saying we're an island of peace. We don't have, but the ones we are referencing against is Somalia and other places. And we all know what happened in 2007, 2008, and it could happen again.
Right. So when it comes to values, I like to see three components that drive values. And one is truth, or being truthful.
Yes.
The other is justice, that the right things are done. And the third thing is character, the behavior or conduct of somebody. So if I was to apply the just concluded election and apply those components as I address your question on values, then I would be saying this. There is no way we can move on as a society if our value system is driven by truthlessness. In other words, we're not telling each other the truth. So we will not be able to move on. Then if for any reason we're moving on without justice, that, we're taking advantage of each other and we're exploiting one another, but saying we are moving on. And if I was to apply that for us as a church or for Christians, you cannot move on if your brother or sister is in ashes, is crying and dying and so on. You would have to stop and attend to the justice and related issues. And then in terms of conduct, it's very clear the way Jesus put it, that you will know a tree by its fruit. So what comes out of somebody's life will tell you whether they are walking with God or not. And so when it comes to the political thermometer, where we apply those three things to our cocktail of politics, you will realize in an election like what just happened, we did not tell each other the truth. Or rather, we have not been telling each other the truth. We're not truthful. For instance, let me take the Christian narrative or the evangelical narrative that God has moved to Kenya. There is now revival that has broken out because our leadership is now Christian. Now, if we were truthful, we would ask the question, what is a Christian leadership? What does it take to have revival? Revival is not a change of regimes, although it could lead to it. But change is not moving from Reuben to Modibo. The real change is in the fabric of the society. By nature, we are thieves as Kenyans.
Default setting.
We love to steal from each other and take advantage and cut on each other, even on the roads. You can see it the way people drive. You want to be ahead of everybody. That's our nature. Now, revival would mean that needs to change. That we stop stealing, we stop making false promises, we stop lying to each other, we stop cutting in front of one another. Then you will know that revival has taken place. If you remember the Tukutenderesa season, the characteristic of the Tukutenderesa movement was that people confessed their sins to one another. They were not ashamed. In fact, sometimes it was so embarrassing because people said things they had done. So until we own our mistakes, our sins, and deal with them, we are not going into revival, because repentance is part of revival. Now, the truth is that there was a lot of stealing in this election. as in all other previous elections. The truth is, we took advantage of one another. I mean, and I can give my own example, for example, that IEBC really played dirty on me. That everybody knows, although we don't talk about. Not even the church wants to look at it. We all think God moved, and we got revival. So,
Yes.
but as we got revival, there was a Reuben
Yes.
being taken to court by the referee. Yeah, IEBC taking me to court so that I don't run when they're supposed to be facilitating me. Then I end up in the Supreme Court, and the incumbent, Kenya Kwanza, and IEBC knock out my petition. Now, if that's not taking advantage of each other,
And you wonder
what is?
Yeah.
So we're not being truthful. It was not fair, the process. We all know, but we don't want to look at it. Now, in terms of justice, do you think I got justice?
Certainly not.
No, let's not candy coat this. I did not get justice. But you see, justice in Kenya means you look at Azimio and not Reuben Kigame. So Azimio has become the loser, the real, that's the crybaby now. What happened to me? What happened to other independent candidates?
Right, the other players in that narrative.
So, and that's now the issue of justice. When it comes to conduct or character, my brother, as long as, for example, you list a cabinet, and as you're listing the cabinet, we can see all these skeletons. Yes. I read yesterday of a plane that disappeared, was it 35 years ago, and appeared a few weeks ago with more than 100 skeletons.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. So if you have a cabinet that is named, for example, and you have people with cases of murder, cases of rape, cases of theft, so you're asking yourself, even as you're selecting these people, we're not saying we are angels, but aren't there Kenyans that have better character, better, admirable values? And so the thing is, as the Kenyan church, we like to say, don't go there, this is too much. Don't awaken the giant, huh? Without awakening the giant, there will be no transformation. We have to rattle. And what, in my opinion, we need is radical surgical processes that amputate and settle, what Jeremiah was calling tearing down. And, we need to be able to undo in order to have a society that survives, a society that works. And we need that surgical cut. If you have a foot that is rotting away, you may need to amputate the foot.
Others, it will now,
You'll
permeate
die.
the rest of the body.
Yes,
Mess it up.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the bitter truth needs to be told. And we need to be honest with one another. Then our values will be restored. What I call in my manifesto, the utu, we need that dignity back, where we see you as a person. When I look at my sisters, I see them as my mothers, as my daughters, as a man. That I'm not, reducing them to objects. When I look at those who are suffering, here is an opportunity for ministry, not an opportunity for exploitation. So that utu needs to come to the fore, and then the values will settle in, and then development. And you don't do development for yourself. You do it for everybody. In other words, you think of your neighbor. You love God, yes, and then you love your neighbor. So that is how to do development, that people-centered. You don't do a project because this road will lead to my Simba, you do it because the community will benefit. maximum benefit for all, because you're talking about, for example, taxes and so on, the public resources. Yeah.
Correct prescription is key. And I think what we all agreed is that, first of all, acknowledging that we have a problem, of a challenge.
Yes.
That there is sickness, there's illness, there are things that need to be addressed. Starting point, what it is, and then now for healing to take place, then now it's an issue of prescribing the right medicine. You can take medicine, but taking the wrong medicine, and what you're seeking to heal doesn't go away. Now, who is involved in this healing process? Who initiates it? And is it an ongoing process, or are there like events?
Wow, what a question. Now, before I answer it, though, let me define two kinds of healing.
Yes.
For us who believe in God. There is the medical healing. You are prescribed a set of drugs, take for 2 weeks, you'll be fine.
Yes.
Or, for a whole year, some ailments go, like TB and so on, will take much longer. The people who take medication for a lifetime, say to control your blood pressure, you
just manage it.
Yes, manages it. So that's medical. And then there is spiritual healing, or what I would call miraculous healing. When God steps in to heal you, a process that would have taken 2 weeks to take drugs to get well, it takes
instantaneous.
It's instantaneous. Now, the question for us as a country is, what kind of healing do we want? Do we want prescriptive healing, or do we want miraculous healing?
And can we have a hybrid of those?
We very well could, but that hybrid is not our prerogative. You see, when God chooses that he's going to use medicine to heal you, it's not us choosing.
It is him.
It's him. He chooses to use a doctor, so he leads a doctor to you, or leads you to a good, psychiatrist or whatever. But when the miraculous healing is for those who really desire it. God does not come here and tell you, I've got these miracles for you. You trust him for it.
Yes.
Now, if we get miraculous healing, it's faster. It's instantaneous. If we have prescriptive healing, it will take a while. We will still get healed. The choice is ours. Because I think there is miraculous healing available for the country. The issue is, do we want it? I think there is also prescriptive healing. It will take more time, but it's also available. Anyhow, so how do we effect this? In my opinion, there are three things that need to happen. One is we need to accept that we are sick. If we live in denial, the couple, you may be having a combination of typhoid and malaria.
Yes.
And you think it's just your casual headache and, tummy upsets and whatever. So we need to accept that we are sick. The more we deny, the longer it lasts. The second thing is that we need a radical surgery in the area of forgiveness. Forgiveness is not really amnesia. It's not forgetting. It's choosing not to count it against somebody. So if you've wronged me, it's not like I'll forget you said something nasty to me. You can't quite forgive and forget, because if you forget, then it's non-efficacious. So it's that you deal with it. You choose not to hold on to it. And there are two aspects of that too. You see, if you decide you like unforgiveness so much, you can carry it with you, whether it's in the family or in the church or whatever, but it will never go away. So the disease will always be there. You can pretend, but it will always be there. I'll give you the example of how I dealt with Chebukati, having interacted with him, asked him to deal with this thing, took him to court. He still, I could sit there and hate him and, say all these horrible things and feel sorry for myself. But he might be in his house sleeping, unperturbed. So at that level, if I don't deal with it, I hurt, he may not hurt. But even more importantly, what forgiveness does is that it lifts the burden from us, and God offers it to us for free and gives us that example. That the way to do it is let go and don't hold anything back. So Christ dies for us once and for all. It's not like he keeps dying. He dies once and for all. So forgiveness is the thing that is going to bring that miraculous healing. Because it's instantaneous. You choose. I'm not going to hold it against you. But if you go the long way, the prescriptive way, then you're going to get to a point where maybe something that could have been dealt with in 2 days will take 10 years because the same people are in office or whatever the case may be. But lastly, there is something that Christ prescribes to us in John 13, and that is love. That people are going to know we are the disciples of Christ if we love one another. Now, that's the outward expression of an inward process. That you only know I'm a Christian if, for example, in times such as this, when there is division, when there is pain, when there is anguish, we reach out and become the light, the salt. We become the healers of our society. That's an expression of love. So that instead of looking at Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, reconciliation takes place and you realize, this is my brother, this is my sister. On the other hand, that even where you had enemies, maybe in leadership or your competitor or the case may be, you hear the words of Christ, love your enemies and do good to those who mistreat you. Now, and it says, love conquers over a multitude of evil. So the real pill that we can offer to the Kenyan society right now is the love pill. And love is not erotic, it's not filial, brother. It's really agape. That even where it is not possible to love, you reach out the love of God and something happens.
Now, of course, even to put it into context here in Kenya, is that, and I want us to reverse in time to about 2017 or thereabouts. If you happen to be in Kenya or know someone here, when you say handshake, it's not just a greeting that we have. How do you have ownership of a handshake process beyond two individuals or even two communities where we say, Mudibo and Kigame shook hands, so we're okay?
A handshake is a complex phenomenon, very complex. There are political handshakes, there are economic handshakes, there are marital handshakes.
And there could be with interest behind it.
Of course. and you put it well. All of those come with strings attached. But God's handshake is completely different. It comes without strings. God doesn't reconcile you to him because he thinks, if I get Mudibo,
there's something you want.
There's something, yeah. No, that's not how God does his handshakes.
No, he doesn't.
No.
Yeah.
God loves us. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. For a good man, someone may die, Paul says. But there's no string attached to God's handshake. Now, all these others that we're trying to imagine can solve our problems are temporary fixtures. So the real thing is this. What defines our handshake? Is it just absence of war? If Or is it a postponement of a scenario? Because if you postpone, it's like when somebody who takes alcohol, you postpone your problems. When you're sober in the morning, you find they're waiting for you.
They're still waiting.
Yes. So the 2018 handshake in Kenya and several other handshakes, around the world have been like people taking alcohol. So you postpone problems. We did not deal with them in 2017, so they were waiting in 2022 when the handshake was no longer there. And so to some extent, I agree with Ruto that that is not really the solution. But what is the Mbadala solution for him? There's none. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when you say there's not going to be a handshake, you need to say what is going to be there instead. Because nature abhors vacuum.
That's right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who are the players in a scenario of reconciliation? And how do you then manage it going forward? Because we're still on this earth which is fallen until Christ's second coming.
Yeah. I will tell you, the first player in any reconciliation is yourself. Because you have to reconcile with your conscience. Conscience is a very interesting thing. You can say with your words that when msafi kama pamba, but inside you know that you are rotten.
Otherwise.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you need to reconcile with yourself first. Self-reconciliation is probably the most powerful thing because it comes with like self-control, denial of self, and so on. That's what Jesus was pointing to and says, if you come to me, you have to deny yourself, take up the cross. So it's self-criticism. You assess yourself. You take yourself before God as audience of one. You deal with yourself there. Then you have family reconciliation. For example, right now, there are families that are not talking. Mm-hmm. People went into politics and came out divided. So we need family reconciliations. There are politicians that don't have families anymore because I can tell you many stories. But
yes.
They need reconciliation. Then you have political party reconciliations, where nominations were concerned and, some people were taken advantage of. You won, but that certificate was given to somebody else. You need reconciliation at that level, even within the coalitions. Some parties may feel shortchanged. And then you have national reconciliations, like what we need now badly in Kenya, where we need to stop thinking that if you didn't vote, you're among the 8 millions who didn't vote, you're not born again. Mm-hmm. If you're in Azimio, you are a little bit born again. And if you're in Kenya Kwanza, you are very born again. That kind of stratification does not work. We need to completely let go of that and just ask what does God want of me as Azimio, of me as a non-voter, of me as Kenya Kwanza, of me as none of the above. We have to come to God at that level and let him heal us as a nation. I usually have this picture, and I keep sharing it, that a president of a country is like a father. Hakuna watoto wazuri na wabaya. Wote ni wako. So you cannot polarize and say, I'm going to associate with the evangelicals, or I'm going to associate with the Catholics, or I'm going to associate with atheists. Because if you do it that way, for example, if we got a Muslim president today, he will associate with Muslims. He would not be presidential. So we need to be there, and whether you're born again or not as a president, you need to be a president for everybody. And you have to father the nation. Unakuwa baba. Sio ile baba ya Azimio. You have to be a real father. Mtoto akilia, you are the first to run. It's not like kula hiyo shida wewe hukunivotia, So you need to really be pulling people together. That's how I see nationhood. And then, of course, most of all, reconciliation needs to be between us and God. We can pretend we are okay nationally, family, politically, But if between us and God there is a rift, things are not okay, my friend, you can try everything else, it will not work.
You will never be okay.
No, you'll never be okay. That you can take to the bank. You'll never be okay. And you may even be watching and things are not okay with between you and God. Tusiambiane uongo. You're not going to succeed. You're going nowhere, actually. So you better mend your ways. And I'm talking to you as a participant in a lot of processes, whether you're dealing with academic, you're dealing with political, you're dealing with social stuff, economics, whatever. Ease of it, as you are going nowhere unless you're reconciled with God. So as an ambassador, I would tell you, get reconciled with God. Because you may be wondering, why do I have everything but everything is not going well? The problem is here. Get reconciled with God, and then everything will fall in place. Ask me. It will fall in place. That I can guarantee you. Yeah.
Who initiates? Sometimes we say, CC, this will happen, But until there is a driver on the seat, there's an owner, even an initiator of the process, where you may not deal with it on your own, but who do you challenge here, even as, the audience is watching us here?
Yeah.
To begin, and how do you measure that you're progressing in the right way?
I'll tell it to you as a Christian, and I'm not ashamed of it, that the strange thing in the world is we think that reconciliation with God is something we initiate. Nasikia niko na dhambi nyingi sana, wacha niende kanisani.
Nipunguze.
Wacha nipunguze kidogo, Or compared to Mudibo, I think I'm a bit better than, That's how we read our states. The point is that it's not we who are reaching out to God. God has already reached out to us. That's the mystery of the gospel. That while we were yet sinners,
yes,
Christ died for us. So he already reached out. For God so loved the world that he gave. We are not the ones giving ourselves to him or give to somebody else. So God has already stretched out his hands. Joe. The tragedy of it is we don't accept or pretend we don't hear when it's so loud. So if we keep pretending, of course, we are the only ones who lose. Pretense never works. So God has already initiated the possibility of reconciliation. The issue is, how are you responding? Na msinidanganye ati hamjasikia sauti ya Mungu. He is speaking through nature, speaking for some of you through problems going on in your own lives, shouting actually. Ni nini mbaya na wewe, For some of you, it's a book you've read, a scripture, a TV program you watched. God has been speaking, and the issue is, are you listening? I read someone called C.S. Lewis very closely, one of my favorite writers. There is a book he wrote called The Problem of Pain. And he says, God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks to us in our conscience, but shouts in our pain. Then he says pain is God's megaphone to rouse a deaf world. So maybe some of you, God may have to take you to hospital before you hear him, before you understand him. For some of you, he may have to make you lose an election so that you can have his attention. For some of you, fail an exam or something. The issue is, are you listening? I hope you listen.
Can you have peace without justice? I know that is really... because if you don't have peace and justice, then healing and reconciliation really cannot be in that sentence.
You have answered the question, because what is peace without justice, actually? So, yeah. Let me put it this way. Justice is sweet. Let me tell you, on the 18th of July, when Justice Anthony Mrima of the Milimani courts ruled the case that IEBC should include me on the ballot. And I'm listening to that. You know, Edmund, I had gone through so much. Sleepless nights, court visits, Nini, looking for money to pay lawyers, all of that. It was horrible.
Right.
And then you hear the pronouncement that actually you've been granted justice. Nakwambia Edmund, justice tastes good.
It does.
You know, you've been chasing a shamba case somewhere. You know, people have been taking that shamba from you illegally. And then the court rules, rudishia huyo mama shamba yake. You can imagine what goes on in the in the heart of that mother.
Yes.
Justice is sweet, and justice leads to peace. When you deny people justice, you increase peacelessness. You increase stress, pain, anguish. And it's the same even in the family. If you carry on, you know, wrangles in the family, you let them live on, the children will feel estranged, your wife will feel estranged, your husband will feel estranged. Justice and peace coexist. And when there is peace, you will be amazed how much powerful stuff will happen. In fact, if a nation is at peace, you'll be amazed at what can come out of that nation. But, you know, there's something I left out deliberately when it comes to the issue of reconciliation, and that is being reconciled to nature.
Yes.
Between us and the environment. That if we are not at peace and there is no justice in a nation, even the environment can spit you out. Yeah. So you find floods, you find
heat waves.
All these things happen, and it's like, what am I going to do? So Paul would put it this way in Romans, even creation groans in a leer. Creation groans waiting for the redemption, you know? And it's simply this, that God said, take care of the environment.
He created it and He gave us dominion over it.
Yes, we are supposed to be kings over the environment. If we don't take care of it, it will take care of us. Yeah.
And the place of reparation in this whole mix, because then how do you quantify, and even us as a nation, for example, I mean, there are so many reports that have been done left, right, and center. TGRC report, Wagala, etc., and so on and so forth. Energies expended, views shared, and then they are placed in a cabinet and just dusted every other day. How far back do we look, or should we begin? And how do we bring on board reparation to now begin balancing the scale, even if to quantify in matters that you can touch? And must we do it?
Yeah. So reparations in and of themselves are good. They do solve a big chunk of injustice and, you know, states of lack of reconciliation and so on. But the problem is that reparations are complex. They come at different levels. The first level that is probably key and nobody looks at it is the level of moral reparations, where I have wronged you and I humble myself and deal with it. That one nobody can do for you. And it doesn't come in shillings and dollars.
No.
It comes in humility. It comes with the issue of owning up. You going to your wife and saying, I'm sorry. So moral reparation is probably the best thing that could happen to anyone or to any society. And then you have economic reparations. So if you've stolen, like Zacchaeus, you say, I'm going to give back 4 times. We need some of that in Kenya because the thieves are known.
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, when I was running for office, one of the things I was saying is day one,
Yes.
on inauguration,
Yes.
I would give 90 days for amnesty. Say, if you've been named adversely, here is your chance to...
You provided a window.
Yes.
Yes.
That you would have had at Kasarani.
An amnesty.
Yes.
Yes.
So that you give a chance to people to soul search and turn around. Then in those 90 days, you'll get a lot of economic reparations. Because if someone has stolen, then they give back. But then there would be a caveat and say, if you don't do it, on the 100th day, I'll be coming for it.
Yes.
Especially where EACC has verified, for example, that this ought to be done, or DCI has come up with a report that is verifiable, and so on. So economic reparations can be done, and they've been done in some countries. It can happen even at the level of the taxman, KRA, where if you've been evading taxes, they tell you, come. Let's negotiate. Let's talk about it. Uko na ngapi?
Yes. How do we balance our books?
I'll give you 5 years to take care of this.
Yeah.
That's possible. And then you have social reparation, where, for example, if you've been fighting between one community and the other, you come up. Have you read a book called Peace Child? It's by Don Richardson. It's about reconciliation among the Sawi of the Southern Hemisphere. Yes. So as long as there was a child, they would exchange children. So if my child is still living in your society, then you have peace.
You have peace, yes.
There is even a movie, Peace Child. I think people can Google it. So social reparation can happen if 2 communities or more come together and say, we bury the hatchet, so let's live at peace. And that's somehow what Kofi Annan did in 2008.
Yes.
And leading to those reports you are talking about and so on. But I told you that our problem is neo-colonial. So we look at such reports and say, what benefits me? I do. What seems to be an impediment to me? Wachaikai. So those reports are useless. They cannot lead to any reparation if we are not willing to implement. And then lastly, I would say, justice reparations, where justice is not just done, but seen to be done. Where if you took somebody's thing, you actually restore, but it's done maybe through the court systems or through explaining, because some cases have never been explained. So then the sweetness of justice that I was talking about becomes something that is like payback. So I'll illustrate this way. Today, and maybe let me go back in time to when IEBC was telling me, for example, we will not include you on the ballot, but we can pay you. You see, that's their approach to reparation. And my point was, and I made it clear to them, I don't want you to pay me. Because you don't need to pay me.
No.
The only thing you need to do for me is give me a chance to run.
Yes.
That is all I'm asking you to do.
Yeah.
Now, so I don't want your money. That's what I told them. Now I want it. Because they've succeeded to lock me out. Now they can reparate.
Yeah.
You get? So, in that context, no amount of money would equal the justice that I needed to feel that I was given a fair chance to run. Instead of putting obstacles, Mara, you don't have signatures, you bring the signatures, we don't want to look at them, you have degrees. So, if we were able to then quantify reparation in that sense, the justice reparation, then it would be that I would be more gratified to be rejected by the Kenyans at the ballot than to be rejected by IEBC. You see, because IEBC is an impediment. Kenyans would have exercised their rights on me. So no amount of money can buy that.
Wow. And would you say then that...
Can you give me 30 seconds
Yes,
to
please.
simplify this one?
In fact, even give you a minute.
So let me put it in a romantic situation.
Yes.
Where two people are in love. Na kuna shida. They are no longer talking.
Nil by mouth.
Yes, nil by mouth. So you come to your girlfriend or boyfriend or wife or husband or whatever, and say, for the disagreement we had last night, let me give you 2,000 bob.
You've quantified it now.
Yes.
In monetary
You
terms.
see, that is like, it ends up being like an insult.
Very transactional.
Yes. You can't transact social reparation. No,
Monetary-wise.
Yes. The thing that lady or that man needs is pole. I'm sorry. Unisamehe.
Si pesa.
Si pesa. And that's why, I know this is a Christian station, but let me use this example. Prostitution, in and of itself, is not love. No. You can't buy love. Even erotic love, you can't buy it. No. Because the sweetest erotic love between a husband and wife is in the safety of the home, in the safety of relationship, and you feel the maximum pleasure of eros because you have a friendship. Not because you can pay for it.
No.
Because, so how much would you really pay for good eros? You know? So it's a mockery. And that's why I think, let me just stretch that to agape. You can't go to God and say, Lord, I'm going to give you 10,000 shillings so that I can get into heaven. There's no relationship because it's not sold in dollars. No.
In fact, he paid the price through
Completely.
his son, and it is
With his
available.
life.
Yes. Yeah. So they become...
Yes.
Yeah,
So you can't then go there and say, I have done so many good works, therefore accept me into heaven. He didn't do many good works to buy you. He died. And the least you can do is die, but you can't die like him because for us we are sinners. Him, he was not.
You know, it's very interesting that there's this analogy which I'm sure you'll be familiar with in the Bible of the story of the young man who was rich and had done everything, ticked all the boxes,
Yeah.
and went to Christ and asked, what must I do to get in the kingdom of heaven? There was need for healing there. Something was sick and something needed reconciliation. And when he was told, yes, I agree, but give all these away
Yes.
and follow me.
Yes.
And the young man left.
That's also a complex narrative in the Bible because it comes at so many different levels. So on the one hand, he's saying, what must I do?
What must I do to get
do. The do. You know, for 10 good things you can do, there'll always be somebody who can maybe do 15.
Yes.
So you can't measure it by how many things you do. And then entering the kingdom of God has nothing to do with what you do. It's what Christ did. So it's faith versus works. But again, this guy is coming to Jesus, half testing him. You know, in fact, he sort of blackmails him kidogo. Says, good teacher, what must I do? Nampaka mafuta kidogo. Good teacher, we know you know. And Jesus actually hits at it and says, nobody's good except God. And so intrinsically, he's actually saying, are you realizing you're calling me God? But that be as it may, it's never at the level of works. And that's why good works will never get you into the kingdom. They might get you into some social status. But if you were to ask me, because you may love or hate me, but my political inclination would tell you this. Anybody who comes to you 3 months to the election to do good works for you so that you can elect them is probably one of the worst, because they're doing the good works to win the vote, not because they really will do good works.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, as we wind up in just 30 seconds, what would be a parting shot in matters healing and reconciliation for that person who is watching us today?
Wow. So, with all humility, I would like to beg, especially our spiritual fathers and mothers, to take the lead, because it takes action to take the lead to reconcile us, because we are torn, we're hurting. I implore especially on church leaders to very humbly stop dividing us. Stop making the wounds worse. Don't raise some leaders and drop others. Don't do that. Bring the healing. Speak healing. Secondly, go to the congregation and restore what was there before elections. So, for example, most of the church leaders, you told us that we should vote according to our conscience, whoever we want. So we did. So why must we be demonized for it? Please bring us together the same way as before elections. Bring us to that state. But also, I would like those in leadership, especially in the political parties, go back to your aspirants. Make tea or uji or whatever. Bring them together and bring the reconciliation. Wambie pole. Mali tulikosea. Let's sit. We will not die if we talk, but we may die if we don't. So let's sit together. And with all humility, I also appeal to our president and our deputy president and his cabinet, or whoever, is with them. I beg you, this is one country. Don't divide us any further. For the 7 million that voted for you, there are 15 millions that did not vote for you. They are all your people. Reach out to Azimio. They are Kenyans. Reach out to Reuben Kigame's people. They are Kenyans. Those who are saying, because he is not on the ballot, there's no point of... Reach out. You will need them, even 4 to 5 years to come. So don't split the nation any further. Make inclusive appointments. Include women, yes, but include persons with disability too. I'm not saying for me, I don't need the job, but include persons living with disability. Include youth. This is one country. So reconciliation is about coming to our senses and doing things right. And so I'm telling you what I would do. And I believe because I'm a human being and I can do them, you're also human, you can do. So let's all get onto the reconciliation table. Let's sit there. In fact, we need a national dialogue, if possible, for healing. Let's have prayer meetings for healing. Let's have worship services for healing. It's possible. And I thank God for this broadcast, because it's one way we get to heal, because we need to talk. If we don't talk and bottle things up, we may blow up. So let's allow the word of Christ to heal us. Let's allow the Spirit of God to move so that we get the healing we so badly need at this time.
Asante sana. And that is exactly the right place to end. Let's do this next week, same time. That has been The Leader. Thank you for the privilege of the company of your time. Stay well, stay blessed. Let's heal, let's reconcile, because we need it as a nation. Asante.